Hey, what up, developers? Today we got an interview with John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. I was able actually to do this interview last year. I did it for my website, programwitheric.com. All the topics we talk about are still relevant today. So we're talking about career advice, how to get started blogging. We talk a little bit about John and how he was able to become literally a millionaire programmer developer by just working extremely hard, creating online courses, creating his own business, his own brand. So we talk about a lot of those things. It's a really cool interview. It is only audio only, so you just want to listen to it. I don't have the video, but I think it's well worth sharing. Like I said, I did do this last year, but all the topics are still really relevant. Thanks. Hope you enjoy. Hey, so this is Erik with programwitheric.com. Today I have John Sonmez with simpleprogrammer.com. Hey, John.
Hey, Erik.
How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Thanks again for doing this. So today we're going to talk a little bit about soft skills for developers, and we're going to get into some history with you, John. So can you just tell us a little story about what you're currently doing with Dev Career Boost and some of your other products? I know you have the simpleprogrammer.com, you have Simple Programmer, the podcast, you have Entreprogrammers. You just have so many podcasts and so many products. It's hard to keep track of them all.
Yeah, so I mean, my big focus really right now at this point is really just helping developers live better lives, really. That's really what I'm trying to do, and kind of help them in all areas of their life to succeed. I really stumbled upon the fact that really to help people be successful, you have to take a holistic approach. So it's not good enough just to increase someone's technical skills or just to work in one area, but people, you need to have development in all areas of their life, and that's what I found has helped me to be successful. So basically everything is built around that. So I've got my main blog at simpleprogrammer.com, and that has a lot of just content about soft skills and just all kinds of different life topics for software developers. I've got a book called Soft Skills, the Software Developer's Life Manual, that is basically all of the condensed knowledge that I have about soft skills. And then I do a podcast called Get Up and Code, which is fitness and health geared towards programmers. Entreprogrammers, which is like entrepreneurship for programmers. And then the Simple Programmer podcast and my YouTube videos, which are basically, a lot of them are like questions and answers, some interviews and things like that on kind of all different topics. So
that Get Up and Code podcast, that's so niche. I've never heard of a programmer that's trying to get other programmers to go out and get in shape and be healthy, because I think that's definitely extremely important. But I think you have those stereotypes of programmers, either the really thin, weak guys or the really big, huge guys. And I think you even talked about this in a previous podcast. And that's definitely doesn't have to be true. And there's all shapes and sizes of people. And it's good that you're trying to focus on that niche.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of the key, that it's an important area. I think a lot of people neglect, especially like you said in the software development field. And for me personally, like getting in shape and has really helped me in just so many areas I didn't expect in my life, from confidence to career in other areas. And so, I've been trying to help other developers get healthy and to get, there's just so much bad information out there as well. Like I think, taking an honest approach to this stuff and just like being like, just this is what I'm doing, this is what works, this is what I'm learning, versus, trying to sell some kind of supplement and things like that. It's just hard to find good information. So I'm trying to give kind of like just good basic information.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely what you're trying to do in that podcast. Have you how many other programmers have you met that are really into fitness? Has it been a lot since you started the podcast, or?
Yeah, quite a few. I've been surprised how many have come forward and how many emails I've gotten from developers. I've interviewed, of course, a lot of developers on the podcast that are into fitness. There's definitely more of them out there than you would think. Like that stereotype doesn't always fit the mold. And then And then it's been awesome to just like because the podcast has been going for over 2 years now, and I've gotten a lot of success stories. Like a lot of times I'll go to a conference and someone will come up to me and they'll be like, just wanted to tell you, like, I lost like 150 pounds listening to Get Up and Code and like changed my
That's
life
awesome.
around. And that's cool. Hearing those kind of stories, that's pretty cool just to see that more, it is that, obviously there's a lot of programmers out there and, maybe like 5 to 10,000 programmers listen to Get Up and Code, but so it's not impacting them all, but just to impact a few people to make a healthy lifestyle change is pretty awesome. So
That's awesome. Well, switching gears here. So so obviously you have all these different podcasts you do. You have your soft skills book. Now, how can you give me just a quick summary or a little bit of your backstory and how you went from I believe you were in a corporate career for a while, and then you went to doing Pluralsight tutorials to now living the dream, I suppose you could say.
So I mean, I started off definitely just in my career just doing software development. I started off with companies like Xerox and HP, really focused on printers, and then getting into C++ and C# and kind of getting into mentoring roles. But and I did that for about 15 years, and I did well, right? I did pretty good in my career. But I found myself always kind of in these teaching roles. Like I always wanted to code, but I was getting pulled into roles where I was helping people, because that's really where my passion was, and I think that's where my strength was. I could always explain things, simplify things, and so what ended up happening was I eventually decided to start a blog at one of these jobs I was at, just to kind of share information. And as that blog started to get popular, I started getting all these opportunities, right? And one of those opportunities was to create courses for Pluralsight, or to create a course on Android development. So I went and did that around the same time I was developing some Android and iOS apps, and the Pluralsight course did pretty well. So I did another one. And before I knew it, I was, striving to be the most published author on Pluralsight, and pretty soon that led to me quitting my job to kind of do that full time for a year, and during that whole time, I had been going to some conferences and doing some talks, and I was trying to come up with subjects to talk about. I didn't necessarily want to talk about, like, I was doing a lot of different Pluralsight courses, so I didn't know exactly what. So I started looking at my blog, and I was like, wow, some of the most popular stuff is things about like soft skills type of things, and how to market yourself, like how to build a reputation. And as I thought about it more and more, I was like, I'd done all these Pluralsight courses. What's the most valuable thing that I could teach a developer, like, like on my own, like if I want to build my own course and sell it and just help developers the most. And I realized that it was how to market yourself, that I could take all of this, like my career had just gone crazy since I started my blog and started going on podcasts and doing these things. And I didn't consciously do that. But now I said, well, I could probably reverse engineer this and take someone who, is at the beginning of their career and show them how to short circuit like 15 years out of that path and say, okay, do this, create a blog, you pick a niche, get yourself out there, and here's how to get your name out there and build a reputation. And you could build this awesome career in a short period of time, maybe like 2 to 3 years instead of 15 years. And so that's what I felt was the most valuable thing. So that's what kind of led me into that. As I said, well, I'm really passionate about helping developers. This is something that's an underserved market. Like, no one is talking about how to market yourself. No one is really talking about soft skills. And it was popular as I started going to conferences, like I said, is talking about that subject. Those were the things that people really wanted to hear about, and like I said, no one else was doing it. So that's what kind of got me going down that direction.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking, when I heard about your podcast, I actually was listening to Rob Walling and his podcast, and he gave you guys a plug, and I'm like, I didn't know there was other developers out there teaching these soft skills, because I think it's an important subject that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah,
and a lot of soft developers are probably not very good at out of the soft skills, like how to, move up in your career, or even how to do some certain things that you talk about. So I'm glad that you have that resource, that you've created that resource, that is. I have a question. So in between the time that you started working on the you started working the Pluralsight courses. You were still working your 9-to-5 job at that time. It sounds like I was reading this from your excerpt from your book.
Yeah.
Soft Skills. You had a brand new baby. You were working 40 hours, 50 hours of work, and then another 20 plus hours a week on these courses. How did you do that with a new baby? And because of course you're a family man. How do you do that?
It was tough. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was just having this discussion on Entrepreneur. We just had like this 3-hour episode because we're talking about like success and stuff, and it's like you have to make certain sacrifices, right? Like it's like, you know, opportunities come along at certain times in life, and you sort of have to strike while the iron is hot, right? You know, that saying. And so for me, like, there was this junction of opportunity with Pluralsight, and I realized that like this may be a once in a lifetime opportunity, and this is a chance to basically like become free. Like, if I am willing to put forth this time, like this effort, like the stars have aligned, and you know, and if I'm willing to hustle, I could potentially you know, do really well where I don't have to work again if I don't want to for the rest of my life. Like, if I can do this. And so that's what happened. I mean, and it was, you know, had the new baby and had the and so what I basically did was
sorry about that.
Oh, no.
If you heard that something in the background. Hold on. Go on. Please
okay,
continue.
Yeah. Well, you know how it is with the new baby. But basically, I cut out everything in my life except for working and spending time with my family. So basically, I didn't watch any TV, didn't watch any movies, didn't do anything besides except for, you know, working out and working and then spending time with family. And so my schedule basically looked like this: like, get up early in the morning, go and hit the gym or run, then go to my regular job for 8 hours. Made sure I only gave 8 hours to that regular job, which is something I usually recommend to people because, you know, don't waste your time making someone else rich. And then, you know, after you get off from work about 5 o'clock, eat dinner, spend some time playing with my daughter or, you know, with family time until about like 8 or 9 o'clock. And then from then on, like till midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, just working on Pluralsight stuff, just working on stuff pretty much every day of the week. And then on the weekends, spending a good 4 or 5 hours usually working. I did that for a good, I think it was about 2.5 years before I was able to quit my job. So, I mean, it was painful. It was a sacrifice, but I could see the future. And I knew that if I was willing to do this, I knew that other Pluralsight authors weren't willing to work this hard. And so if I was willing to do that it would be worth it. And I also had to make some deals with my wife because I was, you know, because everyone had to make a sacrifice, right? But here we are now traveling Europe together as a family, right? And I'm working 1 day a week as we're doing this, and that sacrifice back then enabled, you know, me to do this today. So.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely working really hard then helped you get what you want today. That's a pretty good thing. You did something what other people wouldn't do to get what you want now. So most people wouldn't put that many hours in, and you were able to do it.
Right.
And so it paid off. I guess a lot of life is doing that, especially if you want to make things work. Now going off of that, so you had created this blog, which started to open up some opportunities for you. And I have a blog, and I started really blogging in February of this year. And I'm glad, and what I've seen a lot with, especially developer blogs, you'll go to their blog, you may see it posted on Reddit or something, and you look and they'll have one post every 3 or 4 months, or the last time they made a post was like 6 months ago, and there's hundreds of developer blogs like this. But I know that one thing you stress is consistency, just trying to make sure every day, or at least once a week, to go in and blog. How important do you think is consistency with blogging? How important do you think that is for your career and how it helped? To
me, that's like the perhaps the number one thing. Like, because if you can be consistent, I was just having this discussion today, like I said, on the Entrepreneur. I was talking about, it's like, I said, I'm pretty sure that if you blogged every week and did YouTube videos and podcasts about unicorns, that you could build a business off of that after 3 years. If you could stick with it for 3 years and just stay to that schedule, like whatever topic you picked, I'm pretty sure it'd be really hard to not be successful. And we're talking about even, YouTube gamers like PewDiePie, I don't know if you've heard of that guy from Sweden, right? That's he's making like millions of dollars on YouTube, recording himself, being silly and playing video games, right? And and we were having this discussion, and basically it came down to, well, he's lucky or whatever, but there's a whole bunch of them. But my challenge was I said, okay, well, find me one person on YouTube who's been recording a video every single week of them playing video games for 3 years and isn't making like $100,000 a year. Find me one of them. You're not, because maybe there's someone who's just super unlucky, but if you've been doing something like consistently for 3 years, it takes time, but if you can stick it out, man, you're going to be successful at just about anything. It's just that most people can't be consistent. They can't do it. They can't write a blog post every week for 3 years. I guarantee you, if you do, anyone listening, if they do that they're going to have some serious, they're going to see an impact in their career, and it's going to open up a lot of doors, just because it's like I always say, like, at the beginning of the marathon, there's a lot of people at the starting line, but, towards mile, 23, there's a lot less. Right. The herd is thinned out. And so that's what happens is with consistency. It's like the competition is fierce for starting a developer blog. It's fierce for all these things, for starting a podcast. But 1 year in, 2 years in, the competition is so thin. Like, it's like you could rub elbows. Like, you could everyone who's in that space, because there's so few people that have been consistent. So
yeah, it's definitely something I've noticed since I've been blogging consistently. I've had more random emails from people trying to recruit me to opportunities coming my way. So it's definitely been a big boost in my career. I've seen it firsthand. So this is kind of interesting. So if you, and I think I remember you did an interview with someone that had worked, I can't remember the interviewer's name right now, who worked a 9 to 5, had his side business. Mm-hmm. But what I believe what happened was, when he went to actually move from his side business to doing it full time, his boss pulled him into the office and said, "Hey, we found out that you're doing this side business. You've been doing 2 businesses at the same time," and he ended up leaving that job. How do you balance between your offline blogging and your 9 to 5 job? Is one a reflection of the other? Do you have to be careful if you say something online? You don't want your employer to think bad of you, I suppose.
I think, the thing is, like, you have to be a little bit careful. I mean, obviously you don't want to be negative towards your boss and your coworkers and stuff. Like, that's just bad in general, right? You just wouldn't want to do that anyway, and that would have repercussions. But in general, you shouldn't be afraid, I don't think. I mean, and then here's the thing, is like, maybe there's like this little period of risk, but nothing good comes without some amount of risk. But if you do this for a while, if you build up somewhat of a reputation blogging, you'll eventually get to a point where you don't really care, because you could just get another job tomorrow, because, there's, like we were talking about, there's so few people that are willing to be consistent, and it makes such a big difference that you start to get this kind of freedom where, I think Uncle Bob Martin wrote this article about, being a professional and saying no. And so when you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're not sure if it might take you 2 months to find another job, you have a lot less freedom. You're kind of handcuffed, right? Your boss can kind of rule your life, say, no, don't blog anymore, because right? But when you're at the point where you are getting offers from other companies and you're building up a reputation in the industry, you have a lot more freedom. You could basically tell your boss, look, I respect the fact that you don't want me to blog, but this is something that I'm going to do for my career, and this is my choice, and I'll accept the consequences if there are them. And there's a big difference between those two spaces. So I think you got to be careful. Obviously you don't want to like inflame things, but at the same time, I think this is you have to look out for you, for number one. And if you're in an environment where it's preventing you, where you're kind of being where you feel like you're being used to make someone else rich and you're not getting any kind of benefit from that, and they're kind of shutting you off from being able to do things that would help you in your career, then you might need to start looking to move on.
Yeah, so they should be supportive. I mean, obviously, as long as you're not blogging about the same things, like you're not starting you're not starting a side business, basically doing the same thing your 9 to 5 is.
Right.
Probably are okay. So that makes sense. Okay, so if you're in this 9 to 5 job, and let's say you started a blog, and you like doing the blogging, and you're trying to improve your career, is there some things that you should do in your 9 to 5 job to try to move up, like to try to move up and try to improve in career-wise? I know that when I was, kind of the ideas that I usually have for that is just put in a lot of work. I mean, some people say, put in 10 hours a day, really show that your boss that you're really a hard worker. But I know that just putting hard work in for hard work's sake is probably not the best career move.
Right.
Do you have some other tips and ideas what you'd want to do to improve your career outside your blogging and personal development?
I think I would say that you need to understand the politics of a situation, right? Almost all corporate environments have politics, and a lot of developers say, "Oh, I don't want to play the game," which is fine. Like there's different levels of, like, you don't have to be the person who steps on people's necks, but you have to understand how to avoid those people and to defend against those people. So that's like one of the major things. I would say that you don't want to get into the habit of working ridiculous hours for someone else, because it's a hard one to break. And, yes, maybe you'll advance your career, but that'll be always expected of you. And when you weigh out how much you're actually getting paid versus how much you're working, you're reducing anytime you work more hours than you need to get your paycheck, you're reducing your hourly rate. So I would definitely advise, though, in taking responsibility, right? If you're ever given a choice between making more money or taking on more responsibility, take more responsibility, because money will follow responsibility always. Like, if you can build a kingdom for yourself within a company, and then that money is going to follow that responsibility. And plus, it's going to teach you the most valuable skill, a more valuable skill that is going to apply if you decide to go out of that company, if you decide to become an entrepreneur, to think about yourself as being an entrepreneur inside your business. I think I interviewed Matt Kramer, and he was talking about this idea, how he had really accelerated his career by becoming an entrepreneur, I think is what he called it. And I thought that was a real good idea. But yeah, I think that's, the key thing is to, and then also, improving your communication skills, right? Because that's always going to be critical in any job. The primary thing we do at our work is really communicate with people, whether it be via email or code, or the ability to express yourself and your ideas is going to be critical.
So that definitely makes sense. I've seen people think that I've seen people in jobs, especially in corporate jobs, where they want to move up, and they think that maybe they'll go and talk to their boss, and they'll say, well, can I have a raise? But really, you don't want to do that. You want to, as you said, maybe take on more responsibility, make sure you have great communication skills, show them what you've done, prove to them that you're a valuable resource, and then pay raises and things like that will come. I guess that's probably a better idea. And like I said, I like that idea you just mentioned of being an entrepreneur, or being creative, trying to really build a lot of value inside your company for the position you have and what you do.
Yep.
And that's great advice. I like that.
Yeah.
So did you have some to add?
Oh, I was going to say, like, I was just thinking, like, if I were like in the corporate world today and I were trying to advance, especially in a large corporation, I think one of the things that I would probably do, just like thinking like strategically, what do I know now? What would I do? Is I would probably try to find someone pretty high up in management, maybe on the executive team, that I would try to read some papers that they wrote, or maybe if they wrote a book or articles, start to, just ask them, can I have 5 minutes of your time to just discuss this thing I didn't understand about this, or to clarify this, right? Kind of praising them, and then kind of try to work it into, hey, would it be possible for me to just, like, 10 minutes a week, would you mind just, like, just giving me a little bit of guidance on what I'm doing to see, basically asking for mentorship from someone that's really high up in the company, and then I think that would be a very smart way to go about it. Like you would, if you pull that off right, I think you could rise up the ranks pretty quickly and make a really powerful ally. If you just approach someone and say, "Will you be my mentor?" That's not the right way to do it. But if you said, "Hey, could I just set up a meeting with you, like 10 minutes a week? Could you just give me just a few point, like I really want to emulate you. You're someone who I respect. I've followed your career. Like show that you've researched this person, and then what kind of things that you're hoping that they'll teach you or help you with. Probably they're going to be so flattered that they're probably going to say yes. Like I think that would be a strategy that I would probably use.
And then as being the mentee, then you need to really take initiative, like you said, do the homework,
Yep.
Talk to that person, and make sure you're the person that initiates and talks to this person and gets the information from them, because it's not their responsibility to push you. You need to really work with them. That's a great advice too. I like that, definitely. So I know one other way, of course, in your career is to move from the excuse me 1 second, hold on.
Oh, sure.
Sorry, kids are going crazy.
That's all right.
So one other way is to definitely take your career and look for other jobs. In your book, you mentioned hacking the interview,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's kind of going a little bit along. You'd mentioned hacking the interview, which I assume is, and from what I read, is trying to build a reputation, try to meet the person, try to really understand the company before you interview with it. Can you explain that concept?
Sure. So, I think that the worst way to potential for getting a job is to go and submit your resume, through an application process, and then hopefully you get a phone screen and then an interview, right? That's the standard way that most people go. That's the front door. The best way is through a personal referral, right? So if you can get a personal referral, that's awesome. Now, you might not know someone to get a personal referral, but that doesn't mean that you can't build a relationship. Just to give you an example, one of the last jobs I took before I became independent, I basically had followed I found the company that I wanted to work for. They had all remote employees. I wanted to work remote. So I followed a lot of the employees' blogs, and I commented on their blogs frequently, and I established relationships with them, and over time, they took a few months. They recognized that I was the person who commented on every blog post that they wrote. So they recognized my name. And then when a job opened up, guess what? They said, "Hey, John, you should apply for this job." And they actually gave me a personal referral. And then there were multiple employees from that same company telling that hiring manager, "Hey, this guy is awesome," and that you can imagine how well that went. But I think a lot of you just got to think about how could you do this? How could you meet a person that works at this company? What do they do? How can you maybe help them so that you can establish relationships? And if you take it from that approach and kind of the longer term approach, rather than I'm just going to blast out my resume and get jobs, I think that's a lot better. Typically in an interview, when I look at interviews and that I've conducted, I find that honestly the reason why we hire a person is generally because we like them, right? If someone comes in and they're competent, right? I mean, if someone's incompetent, then obviously they're not going to get the job. But if you like a person, you're more likely to make excuses for their mistakes, right? And to praise you're going to see them in a better light because you want to hire them on. So the key thing is to get the interviewer to like you. And if you can maybe even establish a meeting with them ahead of time to talk about, a friend of mine who runs a startup, this was the first time I saw this technique, but we were applying for these accelerator programs. And there's a whole application process. It's these are like Y Combinator and things like that. And he actually requested meetings with the people that were supposed to interview us ahead of time, ahead of time.
Wow.
And he said, hey, could I just like touch base with you for 5 minutes just before the interview to introduce myself and just to ask you a few questions so I can be better prepared for the interview, or just, and he had these like half-hour conversations with them. And then when we went to an interview, they're like batting for us. They're like, oh yeah, these guys are awesome. We met them ahead of time. And we got like 3 offers for these very hard to get into, accelerator programs. And I was like, wow. I was like, man, when I was, applying for jobs, I should have done that. I should have like emailed the interviewer ahead of time and said, hey, I know we've got an interview on Thursday, but would you mind just like, can we hop on a Skype call for 5 minutes? I'd just like to introduce myself ahead of time and just ask you a couple of questions that could help me better prepare for the interview, because I want to do a good job on this. Most people are going to say yes, and then you're going to establish rapport ahead of time, and it's going to show initiative, and they're more likely to like you. So,
yeah, definitely. So one way is to try to find them on social media, or try to find some people from that company. I have one anecdote that I think maybe went too far. So I went to a programmer meetup here I live in Reno, Nevada, and I had met an engineer that was looking for a job, and we kind of talked a little bit, and I told him about the company I worked for, and he said he wanted to connect. So I said, hit me up in LinkedIn. So we connected on LinkedIn, and then the next day he looked through my LinkedIn friends profile and found my boss, and then contacted my boss through LinkedIn to try to get himself an interview in my company. And I was thinking, well, I guess that's really ambitious, but I don't know if that's the right way to go about it, because I felt like he kind of used me to get to my boss. But it actually worked. He got an interview. He didn't get the job, but
yeah,
I don't know.
See, that's the thing I think that like people make the mistake with networking is something you do before you need a job, not when. When you need a job and you quote network, that's called using people. Like that's like you build your network ahead of time, and then when you need, and if you're in the position where you need a job, like you've got to build rapport with the person, right? I think like I think like he could have turned that scenario around. Like if he was like, he connected with you on LinkedIn, and then he's like, look through your profile and it's like, hey, I saw that you're real interested in, XYZ. I happened to come across this really good article and a couple of books and resources. I thought maybe this would be useful to you. And in fact, I just mailed you a copy of this book, or, something like really cool to go out of his way to show that he wants to help you, or,
Right.
do something kind for you, exchange, back and forth a few times, and then possibly ask you, hey, would you mind sending my resume to your boss? Something like along those, the natural progression of a relationship, rather than this forced, oh, okay, I got what I want. Now, I'm going to jump and talk to your boss. I think that, obviously you're not going to, when your boss asks you about this person, you're either going to have not nice things to say or nothing to say, because you don't even know this guy. So
Exactly. After that, I went in and I think there's an option in LinkedIn to turn off your like friends on LinkedIn, or your contacts. So I went and turned that off after that, so you can, no one else would do that in the future. Like, search through everybody I know from the same company. But yeah, I think you're right. If he would have approached it better, try to get to know me more, give me his resume instead of just jumping through to talk to my boss, that would have probably worked out much better.
Yeah.
For him. Well, I just have a couple more questions. I know we're going to wrap up here soon. I know your time is valuable. What time is it over there? You're in Amsterdam?
Oh, yeah. It's about 10 o'clock here. But.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you had mentioned, I know that you went from, like you said earlier in the interview, you had gone from working 9 to 5. You're doing, let's call them, I don't know if you like the word information products.
Sure, that's fine.
But yeah, you're doing, it's like sort of information products. I know that there's this, I think a lot of developers have this feeling like we got to, on top of our 9 to 5, we got to do extra. We got to create a startup. We got to create apps. We got to create products. And I think a lot of us go from 0 to 100. So we'll be like, let's start our own startup. And then the next thing you know, you have 3 friends and you work for 6 months, and 99% or 95% of the time, nothing happens, or 2 people leave the project in the middle.
Right.
So I really like this idea of Rob Walling and I think Amy Hoy. They have this kind of stair step approach, or stacking bricks approach where you start off with smaller products. I just want to see what your idea is about that. If you're a software developer and you want to start looking in, you're peeking over that wall to get into entrepreneurship. Is that how you would go by it?
Yeah, in fact,
nowadays,
I would probably even start with just building an audience, right? Because if you build an audience, you're going to have people to sell to. The hardest thing to do is to like build a product and then try and find people to buy it and convince people they need to buy the thing. What's so much easier is to build an audience, to give people value for free, so that people genuinely like you. They like what you're producing. You're giving them value already. They trust you, right? And then you sell them something. Then you build something that they need, that solves a problem for them. And then they already know you. You've already got an audience, an established relationship, potential customers. The sale is so much easier at that point. So I think that's kind of where I approach it, where I would start off, and definitely start off with something small. And along with that, I would say also one of the key things, like, I didn't start achieving real success in my life until I started becoming a finisher. I have a closet full of half-completed projects I always joke, a yellow belt in karate, soccer cleats, all these things I never really completed. But when I completed my first Android app and put it in the store and it was done, right? And then built an iOS app and started doing these things, completing these projects, that's when I started seeing some real success. And I started with smaller projects, but, so many people, and I've done this before, start up a project with a couple of buddies and they are going to build this new startup or whatever, and they never even get version 1 out the door, right? Just waste a lot of time or it gets a 90% completion, and 90% completion is the same as 0 because it's only has value when you hit 100%. So I always like to use this phrase. I kind of borrowed it from Stephen Covey, but I use it in a different way, of beginning with the end in mind. And when I say that, what I mean is imagine how the thing is going to end. Like if you say, I'm going to start a blog, well, think back into the future and say, okay, is this real? Am I realistically going to stop doing this in 3 months? If so, don't even start because you're just wasting your time. Or if you say, I'm gonna build this new software, I got this idea to build this app. Okay, well, think about it. Are you actually going to accomplish it? Because if you know that you're just going to probably work on this for a few weeks and then your enthusiasm is going to die, then don't do it. Project it into the future so that when you start something, you never start it unless you see yourself finishing it, so that you don't waste time on if you could get back all that time from all those stupid projects you created, you know what I mean, that you have finished, and put that time to just one single focus. Imagine, how successful you could be at that thing. And so that's one thing that I think, a big pitfall that a lot of wannabe entrepreneurs fall into.
So when you start something, make sure you complete it.
Yep.
Start small. I see. Definitely. Definitely understand that. I've had many projects that I have not completed either, and they all kind of sit somewhere, and they are sad. So definitely I'll need to work on that as well. I have a couple of things now, some opportunities that have popped up since I've started my blog that I want to get into now. Maybe kind of sort of following in your footstep. You did Pluralsight. I really want to start a Udemy course.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've had been with my blog. I've created a small mailing list, and now I am looking to take that next step. So it's exciting hearing from you guys, which are, especially when I listen to your Entrepreneur Programmers podcasts that are 5 years, 6 years ahead of me. I could see that's where I want to go eventually one day.
Awesome.
So it's very cool seeing that. So would you say one of the soft skills that most programmers are missing? What do you think that is?
That's a good question. I would say probably the default one, which is dealing with people, right? Is good people skills. That's what generally people think of soft skills. Mm-hmm. I think of it as a little bit more, but I think that's probably the main one, right? For that one, I would recommend How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Excellent book. I read it at least once a year. But being able to talk to people, to express your ideas, to be able to understand people and be empathetic, and to generally come across well with people, to avoid conflict. Those are really, really critical things that like make or break a person. And so, in whatever you're doing, like it's just so applicable in life. Like learning those basic skills are that so many people have rough edges. It's really, really hard. So being that kind of person that can get along with everyone, that is able to sell their ideas, to be persuasive, to be able to really add value to other people's lives, that is an extremely valuable skill. So if you can learn people skills, I think that's something.
How do you learn it though? How would you go by it? Learn it. Let's say you're not the most. You're more, maybe a little more introverted, but that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have soft skills, of course, or you don't have interpersonal skills. But how would you go along the lines of improving that?
So that's where I think honestly the best resource I think to start with is How to Win Friends and Influence People. Is
the book, right?
Yeah, it's a really foundational book. Like going through that book, I think you'll just pick up a lot just from that, and then practicing those things that are talked about in the book, and then also just getting out there and like getting out of your shell, right? A lot of it is doing things like, heck, like you're doing interviews and podcasts and blog, right? It's like these are things that make you uncomfortable, and I know it because it made me so uncomfortable when I first did that, but I grew so much as a person by doing that, even by just going to conferences and just like walking up to a random person and introducing myself and saying hi. And, those are the kind of things that, at first, like you're very, like you don't know what to say. You're very shy, like you say the wrong things, but then you develop a kind of a knack for it. And you will get over it, and you will learn how to interact with people. You just have to put yourself in those kind of difficult situations a lot. And that's, a lot of people don't want to do that because they don't see the benefit of it. But there's a really huge benefit to putting yourself out there. I always say, don't be afraid to look like an idiot. So I think that's how you really develop those skills.
I'm definitely learning those as we go along, starting to do interviews, getting more comfortable talking to people. It's a little different at the beginning, especially when you're just getting used to talking to a microphone and
exactly.
a camera. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. So I know one of I think it was in the Simple Programmer podcast, you had mentioned that it's, you talked a little bit about criticism, and you said, well, always be willing to accept criticism, but be careful on giving it, because most people don't take criticism, even if it's constructive criticism well. Do you have any advice for me? And on my site, I would take some constructive criticism, or anything that you have.
Sure. So, let me see. So I was looking through your site. I like the navigation, and I like your articles. You've got some good content, like lengthy articles with real meat to them, some real value. I'd say for you, I would probably try, and I don't know if the ad is going to make much sense right now.
Okay.
I don't know if you're getting enough traffic. Like maybe you're making like $50 a month from ads, or $100. Mm-hmm. You'd probably.
It's an affiliate link through. I've been trying to mess around with affiliates lately.
Yeah.
So I tried Udemy, and I tried Code Academy, and so it right now they don't make much, and they're based on, of course, purchases. And I just was trying to put it over there on the side. I'm not sure if it was worth doing.
If it's not generating you enough money that it's like impacting your life, I would probably just wait. Like I'm not saying don't. I've obviously got ads on my site, but I would just it's not worth it until you get focus on building an audience, because okay. I'd rather see a sign up for your email list there, because that's going to be more valuable to you, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say there. And then it looks like you're blogging pretty consistently, so mm-hmm. that is good. And you've got an About Me page, which is awesome. Your site loads up pretty fast. I don't know if I have too much to say. I'd say, just be keeping consistent with what you're doing, and it's going to take some time. I would say, let's see. Okay, so there's a pop-up that comes up that says, "Are you a software developer?"
Yes.
And I feel like it's a little bit wall of texty, like. I want to see like some real value being pitched to me to that I can immediately absorb. Right, I have to read it to say, okay, receive a free Ember testing cheat sheet and free Aurelia getting started cheat sheet. I also don't know if like enough people. I don't know how many people are coming to your site for those two topics that they would want to sign up. So I think whatever you're offering to get someone to sign up for your email list should be generally applicable to everyone who's coming to your site.
Okay. Yeah, I've been messing around with that. I get a lot of traffic for Ember topics. I rank pretty high on some of those.
Okay.
And some of the Aurelia topics I do rank for, but I have to figure out if I should take some of these topics and make them some of these GIFs and put them at the end of more popular blog posts. I have a email sign up at the end of each blog post, but maybe do more of a call to action at each one of my more popular blog posts and put in this, hey, by the way, you can get this free cheat sheet if you sign up, something like that.
Yeah, I think one thing that like
content upgrades, I think they call it.
Yeah, I was just about to suggest that. I think that would work pretty well for you to do content upgrades for those, because then they're those things are specific. But yeah, I like what you're doing, and I like the consistency, and it looks like you're on the right track. It's good that you've got an email list started this early on. I wish I would have started an email list as soon as I started my blog. That's the real asset of a blog, is the email list, really. So.
Oh wait, thank you for the advice. I appreciate everything. So, and I'll put in the show notes information to contact you. So what's the best place for people to contact you, John?
Probably just to go to simpleprogrammer.com. Really, I think that's where you can find pretty much everything I do from there. And I actually am starting to open up the gates to accept some submissions for guest posts on there. Like, I'm going to make it more than, I want to expand this to more than just me. So I'm just starting to do that if anyone's interested in expanding through my audience to help boost their career. So
great. Yeah, maybe I'll even look into something. Maybe I'll write something for you. Who knows?
Yeah, I'd love it if you did. If you can just email editor@simpleprogrammer.com. And
okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Great talking to you. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you for watching and listening to this interview with John. It was really awesome talking to him last year. If you like these type of episodes, please click that subscribe button. Click that subscribe button. That really helps me. Comment below. That's awesome. I like to talk. Take care. Peace.